Kia ora everyone, welcome. Ko Frian Watia Toko Ingoa. And I have with me today Louise Marra, who's going to join our Kōrero. I'll get us going with the karakia. Karakia, timatanga. Manakitia teine hui, manakitia teine ropu, manakitia teine whanau. Tainoa ki teine kaupapa. Arahina na kōrero, arahina na patai. Arahina na ture nei, kia puta ai te maramatanga. Amine. Welcome, everybody. Really excited to have Louise with me today and hear her share about the mahi that she does. So I'm going to do a little introduction about you, Louise, and then I will hand it over to you to introduce yourself and share a bit more about yourself. Louise is a systems healer who helps change makers to deal with traumas and reconnect with humanity. Her experience in government, NGOs, and businesses has allowed her some deep understandings and insights of the inherent disconnects stopping us from embracing the natural flow of life. Her work around systems transformation through the healing of collective and individual trauma is really impactful, and it helps us to reconnect to ourselves, our work, our communities, and our land authentically and engage in courageous conversations to make some bold and transformational shifts in our respective spaces. Louise is also the founder of ReRoot Fundamentals Course and is also partnering with Rebecca and is a co-founder of the Pakeha Project. So welcome, Louise. Really exciting to have you here, especially in these times when there's so much change, so much systemic, uncertainty that impacts our communities and people. Really excited to have you and hear from you what we could be doing in, the systems change space with that healing-centered approach. So welcome, Kia ora.
Kia ora and kia ora koutou. Yeah, ki te kai karakia, tēnā koe Freyan, and yeah, kuai au ko tarapaunamu te maunga, ko ohani mataroa te awa, ko papueru te marae, ko Ngāti Tāwhake te hapu, ko ngai tūhoi, te iwi ko Melbourne rawa ko Doherty tuku whānau, ko Louise Marra tuku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Yeah, so good to be with you. And I was just telling Freya, we've had our power off from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. So I was just hoping that it came on, and it did. So I must be need to be here with you all. Yeah, so I kind of think of myself as a braided river. I whakapapa te tūhoi and was brought up into Urewera, but also to the Celtic lands and yeah, the Romanic lands as well. So I'm kind of part Italian. And it's very relevant to me because I spent a lot of my life feeling all the disconnects of my whakapapa. And one day I just really felt what's very true for me is I'm a braided river of all different whakapapa. And so then it led me on a journey of kind of making love, not war, inside myself. I can't be wrong. I am all this whakapapa. So then I started very intentionally working with it, and it's just been the most beautiful thing. And so, yeah, I work a lot in collective trauma, collective healing, decolonization, and systems healing. So it kind of really started with myself in a way, although I'd had a big systems kind of career as well. So it all makes sense to me now in my life, but it didn't always.
Yeah. That's really fantastic, Louise. When I first met you at one of those Pakeha Project introductory sort of workshops, I think it was the first time that I felt like I needed to really acknowledge, how much we carry despite going on with all the advocacy and going on with all the mahi we do for change. And I think it was the first time where I realized it was okay for me to pause. It was okay to take that time for myself. And I think that was really impactful for me. And I'm going to jump right into this because this is something that's always stood out to me. I remember when you sort of did one of those grounding exercises and you were talking about, you know, you don't want to let the floodgates open, but you want to reconnect with yourself within, and you want to, really take some time to look within yourself. And I recall thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to let the floodgates open because when we reconnect and when we look within ourselves, often that is what happens if you haven't really done it or learned to do it, in a way that's manageable. And so I'm really curious to know how can people, reconnect with themselves? Like you say, when you stopped warring between yourself within yourself, obviously you made peace with yourself, all of it. And sometimes I think it's like all the parts of us, isn't it? The good, bad, and the ugly, the things we want to strive for. How, when you're reconnecting with yourself, can you do it in a way where you're not breaking down, where you're not, completely letting loose the floodgates? Because I think a lot of that change transformation starts from within. It starts with us. It's all about us. So yeah, share a little about that, please.
Yeah, beautiful. And I could say a lot. I think what I'd like to say first is that I think part of this evolution we're in is to redefine what the work is, because we all think the
Mhm.
work is to work on something,
Yeah.
which it is, but it's also to work with something and as something. And
Yeah.
because we have so been in work avoidance of our inner work, in a way,
Yeah.
we've separated it out. So that means you have to go away on your own or with a therapist and sort it out. But actually, in the areas I work with of collective intergenerational trauma, individual therapy won't do it. It's a
Mm.
collective process. So all my work is about let's build it in as part of the mahi. Like it's
Yeah.
part of the work that we all heal together.
Yeah.
And whatever your team is comprised of, there'll be a lot of collective intergenerational trauma
Yeah.
in the room. And it's in the room because it's still trying to be healed, not because it's a problem.
Yeah.
But we need a collective body. So for me, I think we fundamentally need to change the way we work to be a restorative way of working.
Mm.
Um, I worked in all parts of the system, senior government, worked for our prime ministers. And then I really thought, actually, I think systems change is about the inside. So
Mm.
I retrained in Jungian psychology and then intergenerational collective trauma and then
Yeah.
somatic therapies. And what I love about where I'm at now is this whole thing of titration, which is that many of the modalities were very analytical, like very kind of talky therapy, but also
Mm.
very or primal. Let's just go there, like the primal therapy of the 70s and 80s. But actually, the somatic therapeutic world is this beautiful word titration, which is you never have to re traumatize yourself. You actually
Mm.
can just touch in. And I love knowing how trauma works. Like, I love knowing how it actually works through our body system, to
Mm.
know how we don't work too hard with it and how we can touch into it in small ways without re-traumatizing ourselves. And
Okay.
that my work is to bring this into the collective work, because people are terrified about going to places. And of course, because often those places are terrifying. It's not because there's something wrong with them. So this kind of touching in and also building collective, muscle and wairua for being able to do this together is super important.
That's
So that's kind
amazing.
of what I would say.
Yeah.
We can find ways of going inside that are gentle, loving, full of care.
Yeah.
We don't have to go back into trauma. In fact, if we go right into it, we're very likely re-traumatizing and our body will freeze it again. So I hope that answers your question. I kind of feel like that's...
Yes, and I think one of the things you said, about the somatic approaches, and that's something I'm starting to realize, is you have to really embed them across your day, not just, across the week, so to speak. So it has to be little changes, little shifts, isn't it, that you're making, so that you are, um, I guess you are resourcing yourself, in positive ways. Um, how within groups can this be done? So at a practical level, some of the things could be little things like, beginning meetings with a karakia or having, I guess, something positive that the team does together. But what are some of the things that, you think have worked in the work you've done with teams, around bringing teams together, helping them connect better, with each other? um, how and what can we be doing? Especially, the reason why I ask is it's all very good for, I guess, well-resourced big organizations to bring in people and get them to support with, the team building and working together and all of that. But often smaller organizations, community organizations that are, not really well-resourced, charitable, NGOs, often charitable trust NGOs, they struggle with sort of, resourcing. So what are some of the things, what are some of the practices they could be embedding as teams, as, organizations, to, work together? Um,
Yeah, beautiful, Patai. And in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I work with a program called Haumanu and Ata, which is really about working within a New Zealand context. And when I'm working internationally, I call it deep performing teams, like not high performing,
yeah, yeah,
the deep, and but also with a lot of communities. Hey, I mainly work in the NGO sector because I love the complexity and the wrestling with inequity and injustice, which is a huge thing for my life. And I can show you Ata if you like, but it's really around, how do we resource ourselves to get out of this busy highway, which is a trauma highway,
yeah,
and back into a very resourced place, which our biology is an interbeing biology. Like it is to connect. Of course, it's to protect as well. That's
yeah,
part of our biology. But we need to wire in this place that actually can connect across the more than human world, of course, Papatuanuku, Ranganui, Te Ao Marama. We need to connect and with all the beings in Te Taia. So we're born to do that. We are actually, it's ridiculous to think we're separate to nature. We totally are nature. We are earth bodies. So so part of it, hey, is just to also create like simple resourcing practices for people and teams. And often what I say to a group is do a do a resourcing map. How does everyone in your group
Mm,
come to a place that is Modi To and Modi Order? How do you all
mm,
come into that state? What's your recipe? And within the group will be the things that I believe that that group needs. Each
yeah,
person will hold something and also something from their own culture. And I think this is important because, you know, we sit on trauma fields that are trying to heal through our body systems, through our kind of nervous systems. And if we can draw on all the cultural strengths, um, I call it ancestral intelligence, if we can draw on that and what works for each person, you get a beautiful recipe for the group. So I do individual resource maps. What resources you? What brings you into Modi To, Modi Order? But what brings everyone into that? And each person can start to lead some of their practices. I
mm,
just work on this really simple thing, which when people tell me they find it too difficult, I increasingly 6 by 1, 6 times a day. Can you pause for 1 minute and do something that brings you joy and ease and
mm,
connection, but not phone connection,
yeah,
like connection with our beautiful environment or breath or music or dance. So, and then try and get teams to do that together. And when I worked with a group of Africans, they created 1 minute dance parties. So they
cool.
did 6 1 minute dance parties a day
Yeah,
together, and that totally radically changed the way they interacted.
mm,
Because if we don't wire this beautiful place of humanity back into
mm,
our collectives will stay in, um, in some ways, in a more contracted, traumatized state. And of course, that's the role of karakia waiata, is to get back into these places. So there's so many things that people can do simply.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I quite love it. Like when you peel it back, it's really those little tiny simple things, isn't it? And I guess for people who are in the position of decision making, sort of organizational power, authority, it's important for them to allow space for some of this, isn't it, to happen. And this is where the leadership needs to create some space for everybody, I guess, to be able to bring to the table what works for them and, what supports them. Um, so this is the tricky part, isn't it? Getting the leadership on board. Um,
Mm. Well, I have
we,
my own view on that.
yes, tell me. Yes, tell me.
Well,
Please share.
I used to work mainly with leaders, like CEOs. But you know what? I don't know if they're always the ones that are going to change everything. And
Mm,
so now I much more work with people who feel called to kind of be the system changing, like to be that.
yeah.
And I love working with people all through a traditional hierarchy, because what you draw together in some ways are the healers,
Mm,
are the mystics, are the you
yeah.
and my theory of change now is around the islands of coherence in a sea of chaos. I can find that quote for you. It's a beautiful quote,
Okay.
which basically, should I find it now?
Yes, go for it.
Find it because it's such a good
Absolutely.
quote.
Because
Hmm.
I think there's so much in the community space, the community development space, the systemic change space, where people are often, fighting. You're fighting something, you're trying to change something, and you're always outwardly, I guess, in opposition with something or someone. And and so this is where I think. coming from that healing centered space is so important because otherwise you're wearing yourself down as, um, advocates, as leaders who are trying to make that change. But if you don't make it with others, then you actually wear out yourself, um, by being in that constant friction, I guess.
Yeah, and I found the quote, but I kind of see it like the work I do, Haumanu Ata, deep performing teams, is not just about wellness. It's not just about regulation. It's not just
Mm,
about, but what it is about is that I resource myself, I to be able to heal and restore the past into presence to really create a new future. Now, it sounds like buzzwords, but it's actually amazing. So I'm using this in some ways. My work's all with change makers, activists. It's a
mm,
radical activist thing to go, we're going to heal the past as we work together.
okay.
Do you know what I mean? So it's so nourishing and it's so beautiful and it's so resourcing. But
Mm,
for me, what's important is that it just doesn't stay at this hyper individual wellness paradigm, that it
mm,
actually is, we're building this to be
yeah.
able to address the inequities, the injustices of the past, but the the screams of the ancestors, to be what our ancestors couldn't be, to actually feel what's still stuck in energy. I mean, in
Mm,
some ways it's mahi a wairua, but in some ways it's very biological.
yeah.
So that it becomes the way NGOs work, because otherwise NGOs sit on a trauma field and those
Mm,
trauma fields are taking people out. But there's another way of working with them. That's my work in the world. I've
yeah.
worked in Cambodia with the killing fields. I work on decolonisation. Like, there's ways we can work with this if we can learn how to work with our biology in a way
Mm,
that doesn't re-traumatize anyone in the room, but actually digests and integrates the past trauma. So that's super important to me. But I'll just share the quote that
yes.
has become my theory of change. But it's like, when a system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to elevate the entire system to a higher order.
Mm,
I've seen this. It
yeah.
could be my greatest idealization, but I believe it to be true. And it stopped me working only with leaders to work with the people with the medicine, the rongoa, that
Mm,
actually can do this. So I say in organizations, get a group of the willing, learn to work in this way, learn to
mm,
be an island of coherence. My longest group that I've been working with is about 6 years.
okay.
And that group, the field of people itself is a healing field for whoever comes into it. I think this is very where we're heading as humanity.
Yeah. And I think it's so needed. I was so excited, Louise, to see more of the work that's being done in this space. And it's really fantastic to see some of your posts on LinkedIn and stuff. Because a few years ago, I know when I sort of started out, really trying to, I guess, talk about trauma-informed practice and, relational neuroscience approaches, in Aotearoa, just so we could have better inclusion, better, belonging for our children, our communities, especially our families who are, disadvantaged and sort of struggle, with acceptance in the wider spaces. I was really, really excited to see the work that you're doing, because I think it gave me hope that advocacy could be sustainable. Because I think
Mm,
at one point I started questioning myself. I thought,
mm,
how long can I sustain this? How long can I keep fighting? And also, a lot of my absolutely beautiful friends, colleagues, in the same advocacy space. You see how much hurt, pain,
Mm,
trauma we carry, and then we keep going on. And yeah, I think for me, I felt like systemic advocacy it has always been really important for me, but I just felt like it was wearing us out. And I almost used to say, it's like one batch of us come and do the mahi, and then when we're worn out, somebody else hopefully is going to
mm,
step into that
mm,
space. And that was my thinking, that I will do this as long as I can. And, then somebody steps in. But
mm.
I love that, there's a better way of doing systems change, and you can keep doing it through that healing centered approach, rather than wearing yourself out. And continuing to, I guess, sit in that space of trauma.
Mm.
So that's really, really exciting. Can you talk to us? I know you've mentioned about intergenerational trauma, how sort of it carries through in the spaces you've been working. Tell us a little bit about intergenerational trauma and how is it actually transmitted? How does it impact our communities? I know, people often think with intergenerational trauma, it's, what you inherit, the nervous systems you inherit, which is the individual, I guess, sort of, trauma inheriting. But as a collective, how and where does sort of, intergenerational trauma weave through our lives? How does it, touch our lives? And yeah, how can we become more aware of it so we can actually start working on that healing?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, where isn't it in a way, isn't it? Like, I mean, but yeah, that's super interesting. Yes, there's epigenetics, that show that each generation kind of inherits,
Mm,
trauma. If you like, our biology, we know now, stores trauma.
yeah.
Hey, and what I can clear from my nervous system doesn't get passed on, and what I don't manage to clear in some ways
Mm,
does get passed on. But of course, in the collective nervous system, it's a similar thing. So children are still born into institutional racism. They're still born into the very orthodox Western worldview that can have,
mm,
it's very grippy and it's become very global,
mm,
that doesn't see itself and thinks itself as right and true, but it's a disconnected, traumatized way of being in itself.
yeah.
So then people are still born into that soup, enculturated
Mm,
into it, which is still saying these parts are good, these parts are not good, these parts can turn up, these parts can't turn up. So,
yeah.
we've both got intergenerational trauma handed on, but we've still got all the collective traumas of the
Mm,
wiring of the collective
yeah.
soup that people are having to exist in. That we think driving productivity is above driving relationships. We think that productivity is more is better, which is very seldom the case. Flow states are the most productive states, and most organizations never get close to them, or humans.
Mm,
You know what I mean? They're way more advanced than
yeah.
more stress. And I think all the work on the kind of nervous system, which I trained in Pilates, I'm a bit geeky about it, but to me it's an alchemical system. I've really kind of re-indigenized it for myself, and it's a place of interbeing, interconnectivity. It really shows us that anything born from the separation and superiority of the orthodox worldview will keep that going. And that's
Mm,
why I feel, that's why I love working with the NGO sector. But we've bought it hook, line, and sinker, but it's not working. And I guess that's why I've developed over 10 years, Haumanu. There's another way that humans can work together that heals as they work.
yeah.
To me, I also work with an international group a lot on this healing centered systems change. I think it'll just be the way humans work together in 15 years or so. But my kind of goal is to make that more 10 or 15 years rather than
Yeah,
50 years,
yeah.
because we don't. Let's start now. So yeah, I'm always trying to
Absolutely.
get that out. And we've got a new training coming up for Haumanu. I'll put it in the chat.
Amazing. Thank you. Um,
Yeah.
Louise, tell us, what is the ReRoot Fundamentals course that you've been sort of running? T Talk to us a little bit about that.
Like, just trying to find my book. Ah. I I mean, it's all part of this. I was brought up into Urewera, whakapapa tutu hoi. I'm the last of nine, and we brought up some of my uncles and aunts, and there wasn't much attention, co-regulation, like to go around. So I learned to, if you like, co-regulate with the trees and the
Okay.
earth. And I learned to hear them, listen to them, be with them.
Yeah.
So I kind of do quite a lot of nature connection work, and I was running an international lab on nature connection, and like people really didn't know how to do it. So then I thought, okay, trees actually have a nervous system like
Ooh.
humans. It's
Mhm.
quite incredible. They're like portals into connection with all parts of Te Taio.
Mhm.
So I wrote ReRoot as tried to make it a very simple book to help people. It's got 50 processes of how to connect and deepen your connection with a tree, so that you actually have a not a not a cognitive sense of your interbeing, but you actually feel it, and it's actually in place. You've built that capacity.
Yeah.
And to me, we have incredible capacities as these human biologies. But I'm always spending my time like building up people's earth intelligence, ancestral intelligence, love intelligence. You know, we've got way more than just the prefrontal cortex or the left brain going on. so,
Ooh.
um, so that's the book. Basically, it takes you through a whole process of how to meet a tree. It's very,
Okay.
and I love doing it. And anyone who I work with
Yeah.
has to make friends with the tree. So I've got
That's
CEs
amazing.
in New York are big, and I'm like, well, I'm only going to work with you if you make friends with the tree. And
That's
they do.
amazing.
And in the end,
Yeah.
they love it
Yeah.
because it turns on this amazing functionality of our nervous system that
Yeah.
otherwise stays a bit dormant and thinks it's separate.
Yeah.
But if we want to
Amazing.
breed a new world of unity, you've got to build that muscle in your being. So
Yeah.
that's why I did ReRoot.
And I guess in some ways for people who are always busy, always focused on, the typical productivity and what's the next thing we've got to move on to. I think it really allows you a chance to slow down, but also do something that is really different out of your comfort zone and then find some, I guess, safety in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
And relationship, find relationship
yeah,
with the more than
that
human world.
connection. And I actually do know that a lot of our neurodivergent community,
Yeah.
autistic children, autistic adults even, who find it really hard and challenging to connect with other human beings,
Yes, totally.
find it really helpful connecting
Yeah.
with nature
Yeah.
and or even pets, animals.
Yeah.
It's like they're not gonna
Totally.
talk back to you, and then so I think that connection
But
with
they're very
another nervous system.
sensorial and attuned. Animals are very attuned.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah.
connection with another, I guess, nervous system is really important for us, isn't it? And making sure that we are having those opportunities is so important.
So
Yeah. Um, right. Tell me a little bit about the Pakeha project and, you know, part of it, and I might be presuming wrong because I've not done the whole workshop, I've only attended that little introductory bit, is about that self-awareness of our own biases, our own prejudices, what we're carrying, or the cultural sort of belief systems that we have inherited and we carry around with us. Um, what are some of the ways in which we can become more, I guess, self-aware as groups, as teams, as organizations? Because it's one thing to, I guess, become introspective or look within and do it individually, but as a group, how do we do that? And how do we create safety? So if you were to create an opportunity for people to, become more self-aware as a team, share their sort of, individual biases, prejudices. What are some of the things we could do to make sure that that sharing is happening in a safe way?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Pakeha Project is kind of is white people doing the Pakeha work, which is starting to not be so caught in this very Western Orthodox worldview, but see it and see what it causes and begin to kind of inhabit a more holistic paradigm, which has always been there in the Western worldview as well. It's just been marginalized along with women and patriarchy and colonization. So I'm going to show you another slide to answer that question. Let me just find this. I mean, my way of working in this territory to create it to be safe. Okay, let me just find the slide. Oh, I don't want that one. Sorry. Stop share. This one. Yeah. This is a method, and that's what I put in the chat, which will be, trained quite a few facilitators and now running another leadership and facilitation process about to start. But how to help people and groups do this rewiring work and restoration and healing safely. So it's kind of a continual loop because it's not a linear process, but generally we start with taonga, resource and resource, like resource and resource.
Okay.
And each of these has a massive toolbox, but actually what we mostly try and get is what would work for the group. So that you're going in, because everyone's so overwhelmed. So we build up, if you like, this ventral vagal or the interbeing, like we're building up this essential place in people that, often has been, very kind of dismantled. So building up the mana. And then, of course, always work with Mother Earth, Papatuanuku, but get teams to have earth connection. Because people talk about grounding, but grounding means I'm connected to the earth. Like I can't be grounded if I'm not connected to the earth. So then getting in team practices that work. And I did a webinar this morning, and someone said, every 90 minutes we go outside and do a 10-minute walk out in the Ngahere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. And she said it does so much for their, if you like, productivity. And then, of course, we know how to do whakawhanaungatanga, but like just creating safety and connection. And I always work with safe enough, because, of course, if I'm not safe for myself, it's unlikely you will be safe for me, whatever you do.
Yeah, true.
So,
true.
We work with I always work with what do you need to feel safe enough and what will you be in order to be safe enough?
Yeah.
And then Hotutu, like, we've got to use this to take apart some of the things, the power dynamics, the things that are creating inherent unsafety. So this is where we look at institutional racism, patriarchy. Like, we've got to start taking these systems and processes apart. And I have a whole process of doing it to get to kind of whakakotahi, which is a much more unified field. So each of these have a lot of practices, but also questions to ask, you know, in the different cultures present, what might they do? And if we're in Aotearoa, how do we honour the role of Te Ao Māori tangata whenua in this country? Because it's such a portal into the superpowers that we need. And then we get to Haumanu. Okay, we can we now have the ability to heal whatever comes into our field.
Okay.
Be it rage, be it hatred, be it grief, be it terror. We've kind of by that stage been able to work with these big energies so no one's left alone.
Okay.
And once you get used to co-regulating in a group, man, it's so awesome. You never want to go back to trying to do it just on your own all the time. Of course, we need to do that too. And then we generate, co-create, proliferate. So then we put our strategy into the room or into the world. But often I call it, you know, do you want fries with that? But I'm giving, say, as a leader, someone a task, but it comes with all my pressure and all my trauma, and they pick it up. It's not a clean task. So again, it's like we're putting strategies, we're putting innovations that are so laden with trauma energy and separation that they're going to just keep doing some of the same. It's a profound thing once you see that.
I guess that makes so much sense when, you know, sometimes you hear team members say things like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to do another of this exercise or that, you know, planning or that strategic, you know, um, exercise," and there's a lot of disinterest or there's a lot of, I guess, lack of faith that we are actually doing something good. And from what you're saying, I think, you know, all those steps, the processes that you go through initially allow for all of that, you know, negative, I guess, sometimes even fear that, you know, team members might be carrying about what does this mean and, you know, how much more pressure are we going to have, how many more demands, you know, all that sort of stuff. I guess it allows to, you know, work through that, eliminate that, and then sort of actually come together and work, you know, with that positive mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, the way I see it, like I did my own little experiment in 2020 because I'm 61 now. So like, how did that happen? But there were so many strategies in the 80s and 90s of in 2020, we're going to be this. And humans don't necessarily have a lack of hope or visioning. We all know in some ways what we want.
Yeah.
But unless we can change the energy now, basically we're on the same timeline that we're trying to avoid, no matter what vision we've got in place. So I call it futuring, but that's what Haumanu and Ata and all this work of collective intergenerational trauma is. Let's actually weave a different fabric and take care of some of the past energies, and then actually all new solutions come. It's also kind of written up in my book quite a bit, but yeah, hoping for a new future can often be trying to get away from the present instead of metabolizing the present, and then a new future kind of emerges. I find it super exciting.
That
And we
is
do
really
that a lot on the
beautiful.
Pakeha Project too. I'll just put our website there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
it's great.
I think that makes so much sense because, and it's that typical thing about, what they say, if you are continuously thinking or being in the future, that's the anxiety because you're trying to avoid the present. And then if you're stuck in the past, it's, that depression, you're carrying around everything from the past with you. And it's so important, I guess, from what you're saying, to be in the present and be in the present, I guess, in an organizational space or in a more collective space so that, a better future can emerge from there on.
Yes, although the
Um,
present includes the past and the future. It's not be in the present. Sometimes people
well,
weaponize that. Let's not go back into the past. It's so
well,
here right now in
yeah,
our present.
yeah,
Conversation is so in our present time in New Zealand at the moment. That is so present. Like we either
yeah,
deal with it or it's
yeah.
going to keep that energy, that traumatizing energy going forward to next
True.
generation. So the present includes the past and the potential future.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not an avoidance of it, it's an inclusion.
true.
So
That's
your
really
healing centered
interesting. Yeah,
systems change works with it all.
yeah,
That we won't, and if we have enough people who are willing to be the system changing,
yeah,
then a lot can happen.
yeah. That's amazing. Um, I've got a question about people interested in sort of, this collective healing space, systems transformation that is healing centered. What are some of the good resources, books, that they can be delving into, that they can be connecting with, especially for our people working in, that systems transformation, grassroots advocacy and community work, development. Where can they learn more about this mahi?
Yes. I'll put one there. Oh, didn't come up. I think that's the right address. Yeah, so internationally, I work with the Collective Change Lab, and their website's amazing for a whole lot of articles um, that we've written and resources for healing centered
Mm,
systems change. But also the one I put above, the Centre for Social Impact in New Zealand, Haumanu, that
yes,
also has quite a lot of resources on
yes.
how to work in this way.
Amazing.
So those would be two that I would, have a look at. Yeah, I thought that was, yeah. So
Yeah,
one's New Zealand based, one is, yeah.
amazing.
So we'll just find where Manu is on here. Um, yeah, those are the places that I would have a look at.
Okay. Um, Louise, what's your hope for Aotearoa? What could people on the ground be doing in their spaces to move more towards collective healing, towards systems transformation that is healing centered and that is sustainable, for the well-being of the people who are involved in these spaces. What do you think people could be doing right now to make some of these shifts happen?
I think a few things. One is, I think it's a radical act of activism to choose not to be separate and to resource yourself, like
mm,
reconnect to earth, reconnect to this flow of life. Like, I think
mm,
that is something that's so innate in us.
yeah,
That's something that we can do as teams. But to me, it's just a fundamental thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I refuse that wiring. I refuse that very orthodox wiring. It's not how I inhabit life. I think two is gather like people around you to,
mm,
not like as in they're all the same as you, but they're willing to go on
yeah,
a different journey to inhabit a different
mm,
paradigm
yeah,
and worldview. Um, I think redefine what you think the work is. Like, if you're
mm,
just working for or on things, start to think, wow, what we're in a trauma field. How might we work with that collectively? I mean, there's so many resources now, like the Collective Change Lab,
yeah,
Haumanu. There are others too. It's an emergent field, I admit, but I
yeah,
kind of hang out here. So, and then we have a whole lot of people in New Zealand that we've also trained. I've also trained to be able to help groups and organizations, work with something like ATA, say. But I
mm,
think starting to attend to the trauma that's in the room as
mm,
part of the work.
yeah. And I think that's some of the hard stuff that often people avoid, isn't it? It's too sticky and it's too uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're too
And
frightened.
yeah, it's too
Like,
scary to deal
too
with.
scary. But I've worked with many, many groups over the last
Yeah,
10 years around the world that are doing good, but just
mm,
doing simple things, but reorientating. This 6x1, like taking
yeah,
pauses so that you're not just, the busy highway is a trauma highway. It'll keep you in overwhelm.
yeah,
You need some agency to go, I'm not going to do that anymore,
yeah,
which of course is our own trauma healing journey of why
true.
we're doing that anyway.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I actually work a lot with educational people around the world. I think our schools, like,
yeah,
some of them are starting to be amazing, but it's, yeah, yeah. I had a shocking thing a couple of weeks ago where someone was talking about their child in a not in New Zealand, saying how they had just so much pressure on them. They'd worked for 9 months to try and get this exam right. They weren't ready. And I said, "Oh, is your son doing law?" And they were like, "No, he's 6 years old." And I was like, "What?" Like, so, this wiring of pressure is a collective
true, true.
intergenerational trauma that's collective. And parents now have to, buy in, and, we've got to
Mm,
start dismantling these systems that are very non-human.
true. And and I think like just knowing is not enough because I found that everything I learned was sitting in my head for a really long time. And it's only now in the last sort of, recent few months that I've started realizing I actually need to be shifting that into my body. I actually need to be practicing it instead of just learning or
Yes,
just,
so
taking it all
true.
in my head. And and it's really hard because your nervous system is sort of wired for the
Yeah,
busyness and
yeah,
wired for the, you know, the way you've been used to,
yeah,
mostly in that fight flight, I would say.
yeah.
So yeah, so it's really, really interesting. It's actually hard work and it's very,
So
you
hard
have to
work.
be so conscious about it, isn't
And
it?
it's all survival energy. It's exhausting and it can be adrenaline fueled, but
Yes.
those Pieta said, blessed to live among the mountains and rivers. Yeah, so blessed. But yeah, we can find ways, and if we can do it collectively, to inhabit this more ventral vagal space,
Yeah.
the space
Yeah.
of Modi Ora Modi Toe. If I think if we can't wire it together, it's going to be too hard for individuals. That's why all my work is with groups, because then you don't have to be countercultural at every step. You actually have a collective body
Yeah.
transforming together.
And I guess the environment influences you, isn't it? Things around you influence you. And so when you have that collective of people who are keen to be on that journey or who are already on that
Exactly.
journey, I think it
Exactly.
has almost that co-regulating effect for you.
Totally.
And so it's easier to get into it. Um, and yeah, I'm just thinking about like when you go out for a walk or when you go out to the beach, and if you do it by yourself, sometimes you struggle to fully, I guess, enjoy what is. And it's like, is my time done? Have I finished my walk? Do I go? But when you're doing it with people, you lose track of time, people that you really connect with or enjoy, obviously. And so you tend to sort of get the benefit of that a lot more compared to you doing it individually.
Well, I guess that's why I kind of created relationship with trees, because it can really help you build that capacity. Because I do think we do need some time alone in nature ourselves, to
Mm,
feel ourselves as nature. Because otherwise, if you're with groups of people all the time, it's still very talky. Or
yeah.
I know a lot of people who go walking with podcasts or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't hear anything. So I think we do need to train this muscle. And I think the best way to do it is make friends with a tree.
That's awesome.
Mm.
That is awesome. It's beautiful. Louise, thank you so much for
Oh,
coming
thank
along
you.
today. It has been so awesome listening to you and learning more about the work you do. I really hope there's, wider understanding, wider connection with the kind of work that you're doing and others are doing in this space because it's really, really needed. And also we're really, really excited to have you at the NATINA Wananga coming up in
Yeah,
July.
so
So really excited about that. I know you're going to be talking about systems change and the role of trauma in shaping our current systems. Do you want to just give a little snippet of what you're going to be doing at the Wananga? Some of the key bits and pieces you're going to be talking about, so people know what to expect.
yeah, I'd really love my session to be experiential. So taking people on a journey through our biology, both its incredible magnificence and its challenges. So my aim is to kind of take us through a experiential process, have some digestion together, but to see how what that means for how we wire our systems. So we kind of start with ourselves. So yeah, and I'll go through some of the theory, but I really want it to be experiential.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you.
I
Yeah,
am
and
really looking forward to it as well.
yeah, yeah. And
Uh,
love to have people on the Homanu journey that we're about to start, because I only do it every kind of 3 years. So
ah,
yeah, I,
tell us about it. So,
I put it earlier in the chat, but it's for leaders, facilitators, but I think of leaders, anyone who wants to lead in this way, which isn't often
yeah.
top tier, although we've got a good range of people. But yeah, really going into depth in ata and homanu of how do we work in teams in a restorative way
Okay.
with our biology, with the past injustices, with all of it. So
Oh,
it'd be very nourishing.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Louise. Thank you so much for coming along.
Yeah, thank you,
Um,
Freya. You should come and do it.
I am honestly, I've been wanting to come for a while, and my plan was last year that I would come this year, and then I didn't organize myself in time. But I will check that out. I am really, really interested.
Yeah.
So definitely
Well,
I
lovely
will
to
be
be with
check
you
that out.
and you all, and I'm so glad my power came on.
Yes, and it was meant to be because last year we were gonna have
I
you, and
know.
then you fell sick.
Yeah.
And I think this is the other thing I'm learning, I guess, in terms of that slowing down and just going with the flow. Um, that not all my plans are going to go as I plan, and the connections um and the work will flow as it's meant to. And I think, that's again that bit of relaxing, letting go of the, control that you need in
Mhm.
life. So yeah, so that's been really interesting for me in my own journey as well.
Mm.
But thank you, Louise. Really appreciate your time, all your insights. And we will see you at the Wananga in July. I'll close us with the karakia for tonight. Yeah. Karakia whakamutunga. Kia whakairia te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai. Kia turuki whakataha ai. Haumie, huie, taikie.
Okay.
Pomari, everyone. Ka
Pomari.
kite.
Bye.